Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is Wednesday in the Riv, and also out here in the Southwest, it's Wednesday. There's no contrary to popular belief. When you cross the Mississippi, that is not the international date line. So, so it's Wednesday. So I hear you guys had a little bit of excitement at the Clowncil meeting, huh? The
Well, I'll tell you right now, the
citizens
vote
are
was
beginning to rise up.
yeah, the vote actually was very interesting because as you remember, when they took a vote on this before, it was 5-3. Okay? And last night, I believe it was 9-0 to table it. And Sean Kadim turned around and said, I cannot in good conscience vote to sell this building if we have the money to keep it. He says, I only make decisions and votes if I can sleep at night. And I don't think if I voted to sell this building, I'd be able to sleep at night. My thing is this twice Mac Holmes had it shoved in his face. Okay? He threatened, in a roundabout way, to pull out of the deal if they didn't sell him the building. He said, make a decision and that's it. Well, Mr. Macomba, pull out of the deal. Just pull out of the deal. It's obviously meeting a lot of resistance. And if you can't see that it's meeting resistance from the community, okay, which obviously you don't care about Fall River because you don't care about what the people feel, it's ridiculous. Okay? It's even been said that Fall River has too much market rate housing already. It's known, and as a matter of fact, I read an article yesterday. Let me see if I still have it. That said that the top 10 lowest cost places to live with rent was listed, and Fall River wasn't one of them, which I found very interesting. Um, what happened is, guess what? Guess which one was number one? Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury was the number one cheapest rent in Massachusetts at $1,371.
But you know what I'll tell you one thing though. You know we're in the top 10 in poverty
Crime,
level. Poverty level,
poverty.
crime, and we're in the bottom 10 in education. Therein lies the problem. We long ago reached the point of too much market rate housing. This is a blue collar city. And those test tube baby, it's nice to hear Kadeem talking about conscience and sleeping at night. What a crock! You can tell it's an election period because I heard he took some heat on being, and he said I can't be bought. Well, I hate to tell you this, Shawnee, but when you march two people into the city hall from Seekonk and get them a job, that's a quid pro quo, and that's exactly the same as being paid off because you owe a favor. You owe a quid pro quo because they got your friends jobs and you also got one of your relatives a job over in Seekonk. So, you play patronage. You play like the rest of the politicians. Do not try to stand on the moral high ground because we know that you sleep very well at night now with your big salary from Seekonk. And I got to get off on another one too. His thing about during one of the debates, he said, "Oh, I agree with Coogan. We should have one third, one third, one third, one third rich, one third moderate income, and one third low income." And it was like, are you people? Is there something wrong with you? Do you have any ability to actually think critically? I mean, nobody can do that unless you're dealing with mice in a lab, and you're saying, okay, we're going to have uh, a one third morbidly obese, one third moderately obese, and one third not obese. Yeah, and then you can control that environment. Listen, nobody, no community. Let me ask you something, Sean. They'll throw your butt out of Seekonk if you tell those. And I looked it up. The average income, median average in Seekonk is $100,000 a year, double what the household income is in Fall River. You think those richie riches will want you to move in? And it's a very affluent community. I believe I'm going to say no, I can't. But I believe their poverty rate was like 3%. Ours is 20. You think they want you to move in another 17% that are living below the poverty line into their community? NIMBY, I'm calling a NIMBY violation. Not in my backyard. It's going to be just like Martha's Vineyard. What? We love the illegals till they get here. And then they got here and said, get the National Guard, get the buses, don't let them sleep in the hotels, stick them in a church hall, and get them out of here as fast as possible. You know, Sean, sometimes, we're amazed when you talk and make a lot of sense and then vote the opposite way. So look, that that you know that dog ain't hunting. I'm sorry. All this rhetoric, pre-election rhetoric from you is not making it, because you are clearly one of the elite now. You make a lot of money. We can remember when you were going bankrupt when you worked in Fall River, but now you're not. And some people don't forget where they came from. But the way you're talking now, at least it's my opinion, you forgot where you came from. Back to you.
What really gets me is that, as you said, we've seen more than once where Sean talks the line all the way through to the vote, and you think he's going to vote one way or the other, and what happens is he votes totally opposite to what he talked about. And his big claim to fame this week was, this is not our job. We're the legislative branch. We can't force the mayor to do anything. If the mayor's not going to do it, the mayor's not going to do it. And he's right. If the mayor's not going to do it, he's not going to do it. But again, all the city council has to do is say no. Every time he sends something down, an appropriation, a transfer, any of that, you say no. And you stop him in the tracks. Show him who controls who and who controls what. The city council controls the pocketbook. They control the checkbook. And without that control, they have nothing. And that's something they have.
I can see you reading. Well, you're right. Listen, um, they keep, that's the political con. Oh, we can't do anything because we're the legislature. Well, you're the more important branch. I hate to tell you that, because you are the Ways and Means. Mayors propose, you dispose. You don't give them the money, they can't do anything. Remember a little while ago when we talked about, where did Paul Coogan try to leverage the council on the arbitrator's award? Because what happened? Even though he lost that arbitration, he tried to circumvent the process because he tried to convince them to shoot it down. Because what happens? See, there's the classic example. City council doesn't fund that contract. It's back to the table. Back to the table. No money. I don't care what he sends down. You were 100% right, CJ. You don't give them the money. You don't like what they're doing. And I don't care if he keeps sending the Armory down till the Bruins are playing a playoff game in hell. No money, no ticky, no laundry. I'm sorry. You're not getting it. You don't get money. You don't do it. You don't pay your staff. You don't do anything. They have massive power. Massive power. But like all politicians, they play point the finger. It's not our fault. I blame the mayor. But you approve it. You fund all the garbage that he sends down. You fund all these things that are not in the best interest of the average people in Fall River. So look, that con. You know something? When I hear this, I can't wait to go back and watch that citizens' input when the people actually are. I hope they remember that at the voting and come out and vote, because a lot of these people really need to go. Frankly, as I said years ago, I was never in favor of term limits, because I said the people get the government they want. But now They're dumbing down everybody. It's like these people aren't capable of coming out to vote and putting people in, no matter how bad they, until they're in a catastrophic state. When we go into receivership, we may have everybody turn out, but the reality is, I'm to the point now on a city level where I think we should have ward councilors. Because let's look at the city council. When is the last time you saw a city council that was controlled by anybody but people from the North End, the rich, affluent North End? I can't remember it. Please, if anybody can remember it, let me know. Because you look at these councils, they're all from the North End. And they're all fairly affluent. We don't have any regular people, and I think we need ward councils. I think the Flint should have a representative. We should have ward like they do in New Bedford. They have ward and at-large councilors, and they blew it. They blew it when we revived the charter. That was on the agenda when this new disgusting charter that we opposed was put together, and Danny Robillard was the only no vote. And the reality is, I really think we need to go to ward councils, because we've got neighborhoods in this city that just they give them the giant finger every single time. Look at the Flint. Always problematic. The place is desolate. Three-quarters of the buildings are empty. And Coogan says, oh, we're going to put a new facade on the building, and we're going to build market rate housing because we're going to bring people into a neighborhood that's virtually, a war zone. And you think they're going to come. Build it and you will come. I hate to tell you this. This isn't Iowa. Maybe Kevin Costner could get people to come to Iowa, because all those phantom baseball players were playing. But you're not getting people to this city until you elevate the educational level, reduce the crime, and give the people what you're supposed to be giving them as a government, which is safe streets, clean city, and a good educational system. Back to you, C.
Well, the thing is, and I said moments ago that I heard that we had too much market rate housing. That comment came from Sean Kadim. He said he was at a TIF meeting yesterday, which would have been Monday, and the TIFs that were coming up were all for market rate housing, which means we, the taxpayer, are paying for it. And then we're getting screwed by being hit with the highest rents available. That's not fair. TIFs were not meant for market rate housing. TIFs were meant for economic development. Market rate housing is not economic development. That's housing development. And TIFs are not good for any community. We have the reports by prominent universities that showed that market rate, that TIFs are not beneficial to a community, that they're actually detrimental to the community. Because once those businesses exhaust their TIFs, they go, bye-bye. And we lose that.
No, you're right. And I think one of them was Columbia, if I remember correctly. And another very prestigious said that long term it has a negative impact on the majority of communities. And look, but you know what it is. This is politics as usual. Oh, they're all going to worry about the regular people. It's an election cycle. But the reality is, these developers, and some of them, yeah, we have some new ones, but most of them have been around for decades. Getting rich, getting TIFs, getting variances, getting everything. And you're right. Here they come in charging astronomical rents. And we remember not too long ago, the average rent in Fall River was like $850, $800, $850. Now, $1,500, $2,000, above $2,000. They're getting these rents. And they're getting a tax break. They're screwing you on a rent, and they're getting a tax break. And guess who's paying it? After you get through trying to pay your rent, you got to subsidize them. Because guess what? your rent goes to them paying their taxes. And it's your money. Just like the homeowners in Fall River, owner occupied multiple families. You're paying their tab. You don't get a TIF. You don't get a TIF. You've got to pay the increases in property taxes, the increases in fees, the increases in everything. And they get basically a free ride. Listen, look at the Armory. This guy he's getting all kinds, and he even said he's looking for more handouts. This guy's like a bazillionaire. You give rich people all the breaks. When's a single family homeowner and a multiple family owner occupied landlord going to get a TIF? When are they going to get a tax abatement? You know, well, probably when hell freezes over. And this is the thing. These people they're not representing the people. Most of these councilors, if not all of them except Michelle, need to go. They're not going to go this term. I know that. But I can guarantee you that next time we have an election, when all this ARPA money dries up and Durfee comes and a delayed diamond, it was delayed for a reason, delayed diamond. All the jobs that were funded by ARPA money. When all this hits you in the pocketbook, and remember, your tax bill next year will not have the ARPA subsidy. So it's not only going to be the tax increase for next year, it's going to be the deferment that you got because Paul pumped that in so you wouldn't lynch him. And a lot of people were upset with the tax bill they got presently, and that was not your full bill. And a lot of people don't realize that. So next year you're going to get like an increment and a half increase. So, look, it's an election year. Everybody cares about the people now. I can't sleep at night. I just can't sleep at night. Well, you shouldn't have slept in the last 2 years with these rents. How many people we forcing out into the street? I got a phone call from somebody out here. They didn't know I was out here, but telling me that they went to a store, a convenience store, and there was an empty building next to it. I think it used to be a Walgreens down at the north end or something. I believe he said Walgreens, but it's irrelevant. And he said there was a guy sleeping in the doorway. Sleeping in the doorway, and it was raining, and there he was, huddled up in a doorway. I mean, it's all over the place now. But they can't sleep at night. Now, election year. Believe me, once the election's over and they're in again, they're not going to need any sleeping aids. They're going to sleep like babies for another year and 3/4 until the next election cycle. So back to you, CJ.
Well, the thing that really gets me is that no matter what happens, it's the same thing over and over again. And we have to look at the fact that, as we've said, the city council has the authority to say no. They control the pocketbook. And this is a problem. It's interesting to see how, when they're called out, they have nothing to say. And as was said by Jeff, this is hopefully the year that the voters wake up. And I want to bring something back to your memory, Chip, and hopefully our viewers. Do you remember when Mary Sahadi said, this was before the ARPA funds, when Mary Sahadi said before we got the ARPA funds that the new sources of revenue that the city was going to need was going to be trash fees, pay-as-you-throw bags, and a Proposition 2.5 override. You remember that, Chip? I know I remember it.
Well, she also said a permanent reduction in fire and police, not temporary.
I was going to get there.
A permanent reduction, and she also said changing the health care. Now, let me get off on this one. We have saved this city well over $100 million in the past 10 or 15 years. As a matter of fact, on a few of our shows, I went what we saved during the Coogan administration just on a premium. $17.5 million, of which their share is $13 million. What did they do with it? And they want to change our health care? They want to take more money. And all those people who endorse Coogan that are so happy with our health care, he doesn't care that we're running under budget. He wants to take more money out of your pocket after this opera money runs out. He went after it before the opera money came down. He was going after it. And I think Sean Kadim is upset because he can't get into our health care because he's stuck with the GIC and CCONC. So this is how greedy they are. They're going to go after the only thing in his city that actually runs well. That's because the government's got nothing to do with it fundamentally. The PEC's done all this stuff. The Canadian drug plans, all the things we've done. They've gotten $17.5 million in the 4 years he's been in office. Where'd that go? I sent a letter to the council and said, where'd the money go? They didn't even read the letter, and I think Michelle asked a question and they got some kind of runaround, and now it's in the rearview mirror again. He's attacking something that's going to take money out of the employees' pockets. That's working. But I'm going to tell you something, Paulie. If you get in again, you're going to be in for one hell of a fight. Because you try to screw us with the health care before, and if you try now with all the money, I'm going to bring up all the numbers that we've saved. It's not going to fly because I know you don't know shit about statutes, but you better read what it says in Chapter 32B, Sections 21 through 23, about when you can try to change a plan, and we don't fall under those guidelines, and you are going to have one hellacious fight. Back to you, see.
Well, what's very interesting is last night, the city administrator turned around because he was asked about revenues for next fiscal year. And as usual, they had no answer. Just like last year, they had no answer. But he said, we're looking at new revenue streams for next fiscal year, for next year, he said. Okay? You know what the new revenue streams are going to be? Possibly. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. Pay as you throw, trash fees, Prop 2.5 overrides, another debt exclusion. I mean, more taxes, more money out of your pocket. This is what's happening. And remember, for 4 years, Michelle Dion has been screaming about picking up business trash. 664 trash carts we're picking up every week of business trash. Where under ordinance, business trash is supposed to be picked up by a private vendor. A private contractor is supposed to be hired for these businesses. But they don't. Why? Because the city's doing it for them for free. And you know what they were told? You can't force the mayor to stop the pickup of business trash. Of course not. These businesses are giving him money. They're giving him campaign dollars. Just look at his campaign account.
Well, I got to interrupt there. You can't stop him. You can sue his ass, but that's the problem. You can't fight City Hall not because they're right. They're wrong. But people don't have the money to get tied up in court. You can't get people together to do it. We're paying for that 664 barrels full of trash because we're paying to get rid of that trash. And we're paying. Those businesses are not paying. They are not paying, and they're not supposed to have our trash because they're supposed to have a private entity moving this. And the reality is, listen, the city administrator couldn't put that together if his life depended on it. He doesn't have a clue. He's a lawyer. Okay? What they did was plagiarize Mary Sahadi's report, and we got that in writing, by the way, don't we, CJ?
Yes, we do.
We've got the printout of Mary Sahadi's report. So all they did was regurgitate what they said prior to the opera money, because now they're going to implement, they were going to implement it then. And then, if they did, Paul Coogan wouldn't even be running for a third term. They would have lynched him. But he got the windfall of the APA money, and so he delayed it. But now they know the APA money is going to disappear. So now what are they going to do? They're going to resurrect Mary Sahadi's plan. That's just what we need. We're going to have a debt override on Durfee. They want to override 2.5 again so they can charge us more than the maximum, which they've always done. And then we're going to have Diamond. I mean, look, this city's going to be in receivership or everybody's going to lose their houses. They'd have to quadruple the tax rate because plus we have to pay all the TIFs they're going to give out and give all the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. So Shawnee's thing about 1/3, 1/3, they want two. They want two. But it's not 50-50. It's 5% filthy rich and 95% dirt poor. That's their objective. That's why they're letting in all these illegals, driving wages down, pushing middle class, destroying the middle class. This is what the globalists and the elitists always wanted. It's a de facto monarchy where they are the monarchs. They want 5% filthy rich, and the rest of us scratching our ass.
We're the peons. That's just it. We're the peons. And Mr. X brought up something that I've heard several times. I've heard it from Nelson. I've heard it from other people. I'm going to bring that back up. Remember, he's going to get taxpayers to pay more for Durfee in the budget at $5,200,000, even though they agreed to pay $3,600,000 back in 2018. And he's right. And what happens is the mayor has been using opera money to offset the debt exclusion. But it was also interesting because Nelson said that there was a $1.6 million shortfall somewhere, or that the mayor needed. And it's interesting that it's going to be put back on the debt exclusion. I don't care how he did it or where it came from. All I know is that the debt exclusion was offset by APA funds. And now they're going to bring that $1.6 million into APA funds. Away from APA funds. They're going to bring that $1.6 million back into the taxpayer budget.
Well, you got to.
Therefore, our taxes are going to go up. And this is why we always have a problem. Because the mayor doesn't want the assessor's office to print on the tax bills the amount of the debt exclusion payment. And we want that. We want to know what it is. But that's too difficult. That's too expensive. We can't do it. They sure as hell can do the CPA. They sure as hell can do the CPA. I know that.
It's too hard. But that's bullshit. Another lawsuit because they have to tell us. But then again, you'd have to take them to court. You'd have to take them to court again. Nelson was 100% right about those numbers, but that's their con. We don't have. That's why when you say forensic audit, their heads explode. And if they had hair, they'd look like me after you said that, because it would all fly off their head. Because the reality is that's where they get their magic money. Remember when Mary Sahadi said that health care bill was $45 million for their share of their health care? It wasn't. It was 40. $5 million padded in the budget. The same thing with this now. Coogan's going to say $5 million when it's $3 million they agreed to pay. That's another $2 million they got stashed away. 1.6 million. They stash money by overestimating what their liability is so they can pay a lot of these things that they really don't have any funding sources for. Because, that's not a projected revenue stream, what they're talking about. Those are imposing a back-breaking financial burden on your own community. That's why none of these people should ever get reelected. That's not a revenue stream. that is just killing the taxpayer. Revenue streams are, let's cut some of our massive positions. Yeah, maybe we could get a superintendent making $250,000 to run a school department that's 336 on our own, or maybe just with one assistant, not six. Maybe we could go with just a principal and not 25 other vice principals to help them out. Maybe we could have a CFO who could actually be a CFO without a consultant and an analyst. She's making more than Sahadi. And at least Sahadi, I mean, she fudged the numbers because that's politics. But at least Sahadi could do the numbers. This one's clueless. She's never had an answer. I mean, one time they asked her what the answer was, and she said, one of the people that work for me told me this. It's like, you're the boss. You're actually supposed to know the numbers. So this is what we got with Coogan. It's like the school department. What's the answer? Give us more money, and we'll hire more people. Most of them are friends, of course. So we can get 17 people to do a job that one person's supposed to be doing. And let's dump it all on the taxpayers. And I'll close with this. Remember what Milton Friedman said, paraphrasing. If you give the government the Sahara Desert, they will run out of sand in 5 years. They cannot stop spending. They will not stop spending. It is up to you, the people, to get to the polls and throw all these spendthrifts out on their asses. And with that, back to you, CJ.
Well, it's really interesting because one of the things that came up last night was the fact that we rent a forklift. A forklift, something we should have. A forklift, we rent it. But we can spend money on buying 2 street sweepers and a graffiti removal tool, which the graffiti removal tool the sheriff has, and he brings into the city for us to use. And we don't have employees to run this equipment, which means we got to hire more employees. And Lyndon's over there saying we got to pay people more money. We're paying $23 for an electrician here. And an electrician gets paid $75 an hour here, $150 there, and it's true. It's true. They do make more money in the private sector. And, to get employees, yes. And the city decided that they're going to start training people for CDLs so that they can keep them in-house. And the only requirement's going to be that they do 1 winter of snow removal, and they'll pay for that because it's going to be cheaper for the city.
Now you're really inflamed. I'm not listening to Linda's con. Pay all my friends more money. You know what a job pays. You take it. You'll fill these jobs. You will fill these jobs. You can train people to do these jobs and pay for that, and then they'll take these jobs. They got a much better retirement. They've got much better health care than they might get the other way. But the reality is, isn't it amazing that you can't say that when you go to an arbitration? 4 of the firefighters couldn't say, I want what Boston makes, because you know what the arbitrator would say? You can't use Boston in your universe. When you go to arbitration, you have to have 9 cities and yourself, a 10-city universe. And those cities have to be the approximate size. And then that universe, you break it down from the highest paid. If you're down at the bottom, you can't go up to the highest paid Newton because you know what it is? Ability to pay. You can't pay your regular workers on a fire department what they get in the richest city because this is capitalism. What the market will bear. You want to get Boston money? I'm going to be like them. You don't want to pay your taxes? Leave Fall River. Where are you going to go to? A city with more taxes? Because if it's a real safe city and everything else, you might be paying more. And the houses will be 4 times more expensive. But I'm going to tell you something. You want Boston wages, Linda? Go to Boston and work. Commute. You make a lot more money there. You want New York City wages? Go to New York City. Years ago, when I did a study for an arbitration, amazingly enough, You know what I told them? When I got that question, you know what I told them? Trash pickers in San Francisco were making more than a mayor of the city of Fall River, much more, and everybody that worked in the city of Fall River by 9 miles. But you know what the cost of living is in California? You know what the housing is in California? These people love to forget about fundamental economics. They just use this to try to convince people. Oh, we can't get people. Well, you're here. You want to work in Fall River? Come to Fall River. Take Fall River wages. The cost of living here, as bad as it is, because we have very low income people, but I'm going to tell you what. The average family household income in Newton is $165,000. That's the median. I'll tell you what, Linda, if you told everybody in Fall River that you'll give us all 90 grand, they won't move to Newton. You're going to live pretty goddamn well in Fall River on $90,000. When you work for this city and you're a department head, you're doing fine. And if you want to work in some other thing, you know what the pay is. Every Fall River firefighter, well, look what happened. Some of them never came back when they laid them off. They stayed in Brookline. They stayed in Newton. Because they said, okay, I'm going to commute or I'll move up there because I like that money. Or I'll move somewhere near there. But some people came back. You accept it. It's what the market will bear. You know, the laissez-faire economics. So look it up because I'm here in a Paris casino, so I'm using a little French here. Laissez-faire economics. So listen, these people, if bullshit was bricks, they could build a chimney to the moon and have bricks left over. They always figure out a way to pick your pocket. They're not telling you they're going to give you a tax break. They're not telling you how they're going to put money in your pocket. They only can tell you how you're going to take money out of your pocket to subsidize all their patronage and their friends. And I'll bet you they're renting that forklift from somebody that's connected. And with that, CJ, back to you.
Well, as usual, we've run out of time. I had some more things to talk about, but we'll have to save them for Friday. When you're back in Fall River, Chip, we'll see it then. So I want to thank you all for watching.
I'll be on a jet plane coming home today.
You're leaving on a jet plane. Won't be. We'll see you then. And I want to thank you all for watching. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Thanks for watching. And remember, it's your vote that counts. So keep it strong and going that way. Make sure you vote strong. Thanks for watching.